11.
Who's going to believe a teenage kid instead of somebody that's been here all of his life, building a reputation?
Thought something was wrong with me.
And you realize that you actually have to step out and do something because it's going to keep on happening. It wasn't just you.
It's the only thing we have. It's the way our justice system works. This is how we can do our part to protect kids. People need to know.
I can't describe how bad that hurts me because my whole life has been nothing but trying to help people, children and adults, and improve their lives through the martial arts.
He was their coach, their mentor, a man they trusted, a man some of them called their hero. Today, 7 former karate students filed the first lawsuit under Georgia's new Hidden Predator Act.
And this lawsuit claims Craig Peoples used his position of power and his status as an AAU-approved coach to gain the students' trust and the trust of their parents. And further, it claims he molested them, in some cases more than 100 times between 1989 and 2000.
This is a case the First Coast News investigators have been looking into for more than a year now. And tonight, exclusive interviews with the accusers and also with the man who they are accusing. How many of you, as a child, spent the night in Craig Peoples' bedroom? How many of you, as a child, spent the night in Craig Peoples' bed with him? These 5 men, now in their 30s, say what PAX karate master Craig Peoples did to them when they were children is a dark secret they now want exposed.
He used the position that he held as the master to his advantage, and that's how he gained access.
Coming forward has been very difficult. I mean, everywhere I go, I'm like embarrassed. I don't know what people were thinking about me. I don't know if people think I'm lying or not, but I mean, I have nothing to gain from this except for knowing that I'm helping kids be safe.
I mean, it's still a struggle. I mean, there's nothing fun about it.
A district attorney letter to the Georgia Bureau of Investigation last year regarding the investigation into Peoples said there was sufficient evidence to proceed with criminal charges for acts involving multiple victims. But the state was barred from moving forward due to the statute of limitations.
This is extremely awkward and extremely hard to do, but somebody's got to do something or nothing will change.
This is the first time they have spoken publicly together about the sexual abuse they say they endured at the hands of the karate instructor.
Unfortunately, you know, it's a bond that, you know, love these guys, but it's not a bond I want. Not for these circumstances.
The lawsuit says they were between the ages of 9 and 19 when they were molested. All of them are junior Olympic medalists, and Peoples, they say, was the coach known in the PAX Federation for taking athletes to the next level.
He produced the most gold winners, and if you wanted to fight and you wanted to win, you had to go train at his school.
National team members, some of us U.S. Open, U.S. Cup, World Championships, all over the country, all over the world.
The complaint says parents allowed these sleepovers and out-of-town trips to occur because they trusted Peoples to care for their children. However, Peoples violated that trust and instead used these sleepovers and out-of-town trips to sexually abuse plaintiffs on numerous occasions.
He's the most senior master in the Federation, the most respected, you know, and we were the most respected athletes in terms of, you know, where we were in a fighting career. And so how could you say anything?
Peoples still owns 2 karate schools, one in Kingsland, Georgia, the other in Folkston. He adamantly denies the allegations against him.
Well, I've been teaching since I was 15 years old, so for 30 years, hundreds, thousands of students, children and adults, have went through our program. And I could give you lists this big of testimonials that I've received over the years.
He believes the district attorney's letter was politically motivated and that his accusers have ulterior motives.
30 years of my life, 30 years of building a business, building a livelihood, of helping people, is being just shredded, torn apart.
His attorney says they look forward to having their day in court because the allegations are false.
Why didn't they tell their friends or their family or anything else like that back 20 some odd years ago when it supposedly happened? The more important question is not why they come forward, why didn't they come forward?
I think there's financial motivation. I think there's personal vendetta.
Who's going to believe a teenage kid instead of somebody that's been here all of his life, building a reputation? And I mean, he knew everybody in the county. We're a small county.
It's something you never want to talk about. Who wants to admit to that? Who wants to be known for that?
It's a secret that you kept for yourself, and you don't think it's happening to anybody else, and you're strong enough to handle it on your own.
Now they say it's time for the truth to be known, and the Hidden Predator Act is allowing that to happen.
What justice is that he's not able to do that to any other children.
Now, Craig Peoples and his attorneys sat down with us on Monday. They were not aware that the lawsuit had been filed until this afternoon when I called and told them. They tell me that they plan to countersue for defamation and slander. And the lawsuit filed today also names the AAU and Pax Karate, Inc. as defendants. And all of the defendants have 30 days to respond to the civil suit.
And I would assume, I know you follow this closely, I would assume, adding to how tricky this is a small community.
Absolutely.
So what's been the reaction there?
Very much a divided community. You have to understand that Craig Peoples is a beloved and respected karate instructor there in Camden County, here on the First Coast. And on social media, dozens of people have come out to support him. But then on the flip side, when you talk to these men who accuse him of molesting them, they tell a vastly different story of heinous crimes they say that he committed. And they have their supporters too, so definitely a divided community. And it will be up to our justice system to decide who is telling the truth. And Georgia's law changed last month with the Hidden Predator Act. Among other things, it opened up a 2-year retroactive civil suit window for plaintiffs barred from bringing a suit due to the expiration of the statute of limitations. And we have a lot more on this story, more interviews, all about it, firstcoastnews.com.
Strong
Reputation.
There are allegations that are not true.
Boys, now men.
Somebody's got to stop it. It has to stop.
Have you ever molested a child?
A coach ready to defend his past and protect his future.
It makes me sick, sick to my stomach every day to know that something like that has been said about you.
The statute of limitations has passed, but the civil laws in Georgia just changed. Tonight, it's their word against his, as both sides brace for the fight of their lives. This is the Black Belts, a First Coast News Investigators Special.
If anyone knows what it's like to fight and earn a win, the group of men you're about to meet know it well. Good evening, I'm Clark Ford.
And I'm Heather Crawford. 7 alleged victims, 5 of whom spoke exclusively to First Coast News, as did their former coach, Craig Peoples. The group of former karate students filed a lawsuit against Peoples last week. Tonight, the Black Belts are speaking out because they say they want to protect children.
Being at the top of their game, these 5 men shared a bond.
National team members, some of us U.S. Open, U.S. Cup, World Championships, all over the country, all over the world.
All 5 are junior Olympic medalists. All 5 coached by the same man in Camden County. In the karate world, Craig Peoples was the best.
He produced the most gold winners. If you wanted to fight and you wanted to win, you had to go train at his school.
But they wouldn't realize until later in life their bond would turn into an unexpected brotherhood.
And how many of you, as a child, spent the night in Craig Peoples' bedroom? How many of you, as a child, spent the night in Craig Peoples' bed with him?
It's a bond that, love these guys, but it's not a bond I want. Not for these circumstances.
This group, along with 2 other former karate students, used a new law in Georgia to file a civil suit claiming Peoples molested them between 1989 and 2000, when they were between the ages of 9 and 19. The complaint says parents allowed sleepovers and out-of-town trips because they trusted the coach with their children. Peoples, it claims, used the sleepovers and trips to sexually abuse the plaintiffs on numerous occasions.
Instead of running us back to our parents' house at midnight, he would just tell us to spend the night at his house.
First time I drank, it was Craig who bought the alcohol.
Alcohol, underage.
Lots of it.
He's the most senior master in the Federation, the most respected. We were the most respected athletes in terms of where we were in a fighting career, and so how could you say anything?
In 2014, a district attorney sent a letter to the Georgia Bureau of Investigation about the allegations against Peoples. The DA said there was sufficient evidence to proceed with criminal charges for acts involving multiple victims. But the state couldn't move forward because the criminal statute of limitations had already expired.
I thought I was different. Thought something was wrong with me.
You don't think it's happening to anybody else, and you're strong enough to handle it on your own, and you're not protecting anybody because you don't think it's happening to anybody.
They all found out about the others in different ways. One through an article in the local newspaper, another when local police called.
You look at him as this great outstanding guy in the community and everything else. He's your hero. I'm saying you look up to him, you don't think he'd do anything to steer you in a wrong path, a wrong direction. I mean, you have full faith, full trust in him. So, I mean, you're not questioning his moves or his steps or whatever. I mean, you just, there's too much trust.
Master Craig Peoples denies all of the allegations and has not been charged with a crime.
I have never molested a child. I've never abused a child.
He still owns and teaches at 2 PAX karate schools on the First Coast.
Coming forward has been very difficult. I mean, everywhere I go, I'm like embarrassed. I don't know what people are thinking about me. I don't know if people think I'm lying or not, but I mean, I have nothing to gain from this except for knowing that I'm helping kids be safe.
They say that is why they're speaking out. Many of them are now fathers. They all used to coach karate, but say they had to give it up.
As a father, I couldn't look another father in the eye and know that I hadn't done everything in my power to prevent this from happening. I mean, nobody should have to endure that and deal with the consequences that come your whole life.
After years of medals and worldwide success, this is a new bond.
It's very difficult. If these guys wasn't here right now, I wouldn't be either. I couldn't do it by myself.
Now, a 6th plaintiff in the lawsuit, Stephen Hood, could not be there for the sit-down interview. He told us, "I'm so proud to stand with my fellow survivors to break the silence and take back the power our abuse has held over us for so long."
Now, in the wake of the lawsuit, Craig Peoples is pushing back. We obtained this letter from his attorney accusing the recipient of making false and slanderous statements. The letter says they led to death threats against the karate master. Craig Peoples' attorney told us here at First Coast News they plan to countersue the plaintiffs in this case for slander and defamation.
And we reached out to Song K Pak, founder of PAX Karate Schools named in the suit. He denied any knowledge of the sexual abuse at any of his facilities and says he's upset his reputation is being harmed by the allegations. He added that he hopes people distinguish between Peoples' 2 schools in Georgia and the many PAX Karate schools throughout the Southeast.
If you're watching us tonight with your phone or tablet in hand, join the conversation online using the hashtag #TheBlackBelts.
And we'll be tweeting throughout the entire show with information you'll see only online.
When we come back, hear from Craig Peoples, the accused karate master.
Did he ever sleep in your bedroom?
How he defends those sleepovers and is fighting the accusations. Plus, the attorney who stood before Sandusky and how she's helping these men in the battle against their karate coach.
Georgia was one of the 5 worst states in the country.
And is 2 decades too late to come forward? A child sex abuse expert on why sometimes it takes years for allegations to surface. You're watching The Black Belts, a First Coast News Investigators Special. You're watching The Black Belts, a First Coast News Investigators Special.
30 years of my life, 30 years of building a business, building a livelihood, of helping people, is being just shredded, torn apart.
The allegations against master karate teacher Craig Peoples are detailed in a lawsuit filed this week, the first of its kind under a new law in Georgia.
The lawsuit says Peoples molested his former students, some of them more than 100 times. Peoples sat down exclusively with First Coast News to respond to his accusers and the allegations that have changed his life.
Hey!
If Craig Peoples has a legacy, it's performing at the top of his game.
I've done it my whole life. I started training when I was 9 years old. I started teaching when I was a teenager.
The pictures prove it. Peoples has spent more than 3 decades taking martial arts students to elite levels.
Well, I've been teaching since I was 15 years old. So for 30 years, hundreds, thousands of students, children and adults, have went through our program. And I could give you lists this big of testimonials that I've received over the years.
But allegations against the karate master, a letter from a Georgia district attorney, and the new lawsuit filed by 7 former students have called that legacy into question.
Have you ever molested a child?
Never. No, that's ridiculous. And it makes me sick to even hear that and know that my name is on that paper at all. I can't, like I said before, it makes me nauseated. I can't describe how bad that hurts me, because my whole life has been nothing but trying to help people, children and adults, and improve their lives through the martial arts.
Peoples denies it all. He's still training karate students at the 2 PAX karate schools he owns in Kingsland and Folkston.
Has a child ever lived in your home?
Back when I guess some of these allegations supposedly happened, one of the students stayed with me a lot. He had a very rough family life, and he was also a very prominent martial artist, did a lot of the tournaments and stuff, and he did stay with me quite a bit.
And did he ever sleep in your bedroom?
There were times he probably has slept everywhere, on the couch, in the guest room. I'm not going to say did or didn't. Probably he did sleep in my bedroom at some points.
With you?
No, I've never slept with any student.
People's attorney, Gary Baker, believes the men suing are financially motivated.
These are friends of each other. They never told each other. And then later, they all become instructors there at the school. And then each one of them, and we could, if you want to go into depth about each one, but each one of them has had an axe to grind with Craig, either financial or what have you. But each and every one of them had a problem with Craig, unconnected with any type of allegations of sex.
Baker calls the accusatory letter sent by District Attorney Jackie Johnson a political stunt. The letter stated while there is sufficient evidence to proceed with criminal charges for acts involving multiple victims, the state would be barred by the applicable statute of limitations.
The vast majority of the people have no idea what Craig Peoples is all about. They read some stuff like that in the newspaper. They see a letter that a political prosecutor wrote, and suddenly now he's been convicted in the court of public opinion. And nothing can be more wrong than that.
But a new Georgia law, the Hidden Predator Act, has allowed the men to file a civil suit. The lawsuit says Peoples abused the trust bestowed upon him and on hundreds of occasions molested his karate students. It details sleepovers and out-of-town trips and says Peoples told the students not to tell anyone and that his acts of sexual abuse were just something guys do.
There are allegations that are not true. There are personal vendettas or reasons that these people would do this. My schools have a wide open policy. It's door open policy. There's windows everywhere. There's cameras. It is impossible for anyone to be abused in any way. You know, all I can go on is at this point the people that trust that I'm, am who I say I am, and they are perfectly safe in our facilities.
With a new wave of attention on the allegations, Peoples is now focused on keeping his business afloat and his legacy alive.
I don't think that there's anything I could have done different. Looking back, yeah, never putting myself in a position to get close to anybody. I mean, I just want to shut the door and just be a hermit. I mean, when stuff like this comes out, you just don't want to deal with the public.
Both sides told us having these allegations out in the open have impacted their lives personally. Peoples says business at his schools is down about 50% since the allegations surfaced, and the community remains divided with strong opinions on both sides and on social media.
The case has also impacted the community through a decision made last week by a local school board. Camden County Schools has decided to no longer allow any PACs or for-profit businesses at open houses. And we spoke to one mom who says she was concerned about the allegations against the karate teacher.
I I had to say something, of course, for my kids. I couldn't just stand by and let PAX Karate in the school. I had to speak up.
Officials there say the ban applies only to for-profit businesses and was unrelated to the allegations against Peoples.
And this week, the karate school was also uninvited from the annual Kingsland Catfish Festival. According to the chairman of that event, the decision was a direct result over concern over the abuse allegations.
The case has not only divided towns in South Georgia, it's also struck a chord at the Georgia State Capitol. On July 1st, a new law took effect, opening the way for the lawsuit against Peoples.
There was an entire system that let these children down.
Marcy Hamilton's no stranger to the dark world of child molestation. She's written a book on Catholic Church scandals and was one of the women who represented victims in the Jerry Sandusky case. She also helped pass Georgia's new Hidden Predator Act.
Thousands of children and then adults were in the dark, were feeling guilty, and there was no justice possible.
The law opens a 2-year window on filing sex abuse claims. It allowed these men to file their suit against their former karate instructor. Hamilton sees it as a watershed moment in Georgia's history.
Georgia was one of the 5 worst states in the country.
Without strong laws in place, she says the state didn't even generate enough cases for attorneys to specialize in child sex abuse law.
What that means is that perpetrators and pedophiles have free rein.
She believes the Hidden Predator Act will have a ripple effect, forcing change much in the way large national and international scandals have. The goal, not only justice at the ground level, but sweeping changes to the agencies and institutions that protect children.
One of the purposes of these lawsuits is to make sure that not just the perpetrator is held to account, but also that the institutions start doing what they should have been doing all along.
Now, Hamilton says cases like these create a domino effect among child sexual abuse victims, where kids come forward once they learn they're not alone.
And still ahead on the Black Belt, why allegations of sports and sex abuse can take so long to come out.
Still ahead on the Black Belts, why allegations of sports and sex abuse can take so long to come out.
There were a lot of factors at play as to why they didn't speak up.
Plus, the lawmaker who wrote the Hidden Predator Act and the special interest he fought against to get the bill passed. You're watching the Black Belts, a First Coast News Investigators Special.
Just this week, a former instructor at Peoples Kingsland Karate School headed back to court to be retried on child molestation charges, accused of molesting a 9-year-old girl at the karate school. Thomas Airy was found not guilty on 2 counts last year, but a mistrial was declared on the other 3. Peoples was called as a defense witness during the first trial and exercised his right under the Fifth Amendment, declining to answer questions. No word on if he'll be called to testify at Airy's retrial underway right now.
And while the Airy case hasn't drawn national attention, a case that came out of the Penn State University football locker room definitely did. We learned pedophiles can wield enormous influence over their victims and their communities. That power often means abuse is followed by years of silence.
First Coast News investigator Ann Schindler sat down with a local child abuse expert to explore how much time and even justice can help restore that balance of power.
From pedophiles inside the Catholic Church to sex allegations inside the Duggar home, the headlines have been saturated with high-profile child sex scandals. And now, similar allegations out of Camden County, Georgia.
Sadly, it's really probably not an extraordinary case.
Stacy Pendarvis is the program manager at the Monique Burr Foundation, a Jacksonville nonprofit that works to end all types of child victimization. She says that the allegations by multiple victims in the PAX Karate case may seem staggering, but they are in keeping with a familiar pattern. Allegations by multiple victims, hundreds of incidents over a period of many years.
You think of priests and pastors and teachers, and they use that position of power to totally manipulate their victims. That just tends to be the norm with pedophiles.
Perhaps the most confounding part of the pattern: silence.
More often than not, they do not disclose as children. And that sad reality allows offenders to continue to offend year after year after year and take on new victims, if you will.
She says that high-achieving athletes are vulnerable, not just because they often love and respect their coach, but because they're driven to succeed.
They develop a very tight bond, and they want to please, they want to do well, they want to advance to the next level.
Societal pressures also play a role, including fears of how victims may be perceived.
And so there were a lot of factors at play as to why they didn't speak up. The fact also probably that they were males and their offender was male had a lot to do with the fact that they didn't disclose as well.
When abuse does occur, she says professional therapy is a must, but the legal system can offer relief too.
Sometimes that seeking of justice is therapeutic for a victim that suffered child sexual abuse.
And while another allegation of abuse may be the last thing anyone wants to hear, she believes there is some value in just knowing.
Sadly, they are. I mean, you hate to hear of children being victimized, but it always raises awareness. And awareness is a great thing because it brings it into the attention of everyone's home.
Ann Schindler, First Coast News, NBC 12, ABC 25.
And research has found that it's not unusual for victims to continue relationships with their abusers long after the abuse has ended, especially if the abuser is a family member or a close friend.
If you're watching tonight with your phone or tablet, join us online with the hashtag #TheBlackBelts. And up next here, the law that gave these alleged victims their voice didn't come easy.
Meet the Georgia lawmaker who fought powerful forces in an effort to give victims back their voice.
You're watching The Black Belts, a First Coast News Investigators Special.
A new law to give rights to victims of sexual abuse seemed like a no-brainer. But that new civil law in Georgia that allowed this lawsuit to be filed did not come easy.
3 different special interest groups fought the law while it was debated in the Georgia legislature. It's no secret, sometimes justice takes time.
My ultimate goal was in passing this legislation was to unlock the courthouse doors. Once you unlock those courthouse doors, you have access to justice to people who never were able to get that.
Men like Craig Peoples, former karate student. They were looking for justice years after they say they were molested, but Georgia law prevented them from taking their case to court.
The statute of limitation is too short, and so it's not congruent with what the research shows.
Representative Jason Spencer knows the research because he's also a physician assistant and says many child victims won't disclose until later in life. He wrote Georgia's Hidden Predator Act, which opened a 2-year window for adults to file civil suits even after the opportunity for criminal charges had passed. Powerful forces wanted to quash the bill, like the Catholic Archdiocese of Atlanta, the Georgia Chamber of Commerce, and the insurance lobby.
I wasn't prepared to go toe-to-toe with them, and their pushback was rather stiff.
Lawmakers didn't approve the Hidden Predator Act for 2 years. The karate students are the first group to use it in a lawsuit.
How this lawsuit turns out, who knows? Who knows what the courts will rule? Who knows what evidence will be brought forward? It's anybody's game, and so there's no guarantee that a plaintiff or a sexual abuse victim will be victorious using this law.
But they have a chance to state their case, and Spencer says that is the first step to justice. After that 2-year window expires in 2017, the law changes. It gives adults 2 years from the time they knew or should have known they were abused to bring a lawsuit forward.
And the act was certainly a step to give more rights to plaintiffs in Georgia. Florida, however, has very different laws. In 2010, lawmakers passed a bill that got rid of the statute of limitations for both criminal and civil complaints filed by adult victims. Craig Peoples now has 30 days to respond to the civil suit. But it's clear the fallout, whatever the court decides, will last a lifetime.
The lesson tonight, keep your kids close. For everyone around Georgia and in the community, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
We'll see you back here tonight at 11. Good night for now.